is Layla. And in my family, that name has always been a punchline. The night everything shifted, I walked into my brother's mansion for his wife's birthday dinner. The place looked like a palace, glass chandeliers glowing overhead, laughter echoing through the marble halls, everyone dressed like royalty. Everyone but me. I had been invited at the very last minute. A text sent almost as an afterthought. And the second I stepped through the door, I felt it. The stares, the whispers, the way silence followed me to the table like a shadow. I sat down quietly, hoping to just blend in. But blending in was never an option. My brother's wife looked right at me, lifted her crystal glass, and sneered. The help-eats in the kitchen. The table roared with laughter. But what cut me wasn't her voice. It was my father's. He leaned back in his chair, shook his head, and said, "She's right. You've always been a disappointment. Don't think money makes you family." For a second, the world stopped. The woman who raised me had taught me to fight for everything I had. But here, in this room full of blood relatives, I realized I was always going to be the outsider, the afterthought, the help. But what they didn't know was that I had already built something bigger than their approval. Something they desperately needed. So I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. Instead, I smiled. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to one number, and pressed call. The room went quiet as my voice carried. Cancel the $30 million contract. At first, nobody understood. And then it hit. My brother's face drained, his hand trembling around his wine glass. He knew. He had been counting on that deal, my deal, to save his company. Without it, everything he'd built would collapse. My father's smirk faded. My sister-in-law's laugh died mid-breath. The air grew heavy, and for once, every eye was on me. I set my phone down, calm, steady, and whispered to myself, "I'm not the disappointment anymore." And that was just the start. The silence after my words was louder than the laughter had ever been. You could almost hear the chandelier buzzing overhead, the ticking of a clock in the hallway. My brother's wife shifted uncomfortably in her chair, suddenly less powerful, without her cruel smile. My father's jaw clenched, but he didn't speak. I could see it, panic rippling across my brother's face. His empire was built on loans, shaky investors, and the promise of my contract. Without it, the ground beneath him wasn't just cracking. It was vanishing. "Layla," he whispered, his voice cracking, You can't be serious." But I was. I sat taller in my chair, no longer trying to hide, no longer the girl they dismissed. For years, I had been the quiet one. The one who was told I wasn't enough. The one pushed aside while they called me selfish for chasing success. But the truth? Every late night, every deal I closed, every battle I fought alone, it had all led to this moment. They didn't build me. They broke me. And I had rebuilt myself stronger. I looked straight at my father. "You said money doesn't make me family," I said softly, my words sharp enough to cut glass. "Good. Because I don't want to be family on your terms." He shifted in his seat, and for the first time in my life, I saw something in his eyes I never thought I'd see. Fear. Across the table, my brother's wife tried to recover her arrogance. She forced a laugh. "Oh, please. You're bluffing. No one just throws away $30 million. I leaned forward, close enough for her to see the calm in my face. "You're right. No one does unless they can afford to." Her smile faltered. My phone buzzed on the table. A message flashed across the screen. "Contract terminated." My chest rose slowly as I exhaled. It was real. Final. My brother's hand slammed against the table. His wineglass tipped, red liquid spilling across the white cloth like blood. "You've ruined me," he shouted. But I didn't move. Didn't raise my voice. I simply picked up my glass of water, took a slow sip, and whispered, just loud enough for him to hear, "No. I just stopped saving you." The dining room erupted. My brother shoved his chair back, the legs scraping against the polished floor. His wife was hissing in his ear, trying to calm him down, but her eyes kept darting toward me, wide and calculating. She finally understood what I had just done. My father's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and commanding. Enough, he barked, standing up. His authority filled the room like it always had, but this time I didn't shrink. This time I saw him for what he was, a man who had mistaken cruelty for strength his entire life. You think you can embarrass this family? He spat, his finger trembling as he pointed at me. You think walking away makes you powerful? I smiled faintly, not because it didn't hurt, because it did. It always had. But for once, the hurt didn't control me. I placed my phone down on the table gently, the way someone might set down a winning card at the end of a game. I'm not embarrassing the family, I said evenly. I'm just refusing to let the family keep embarrassing me. That silenced them. For a moment, nobody moved. The clinking of cutlery from the kitchen felt miles away. My brother's hands were shaking now. You don't understand, he said, desperation leaking into his tone. That contract was everything. I have deals lined up depending on it. Without it, he stopped, choking on the words. I leaned back, tilting my head as I studied him. Then maybe you should have thought about that, I whispered, before you treated me like I was nothing. His wife grabbed his arm, whispering frantically, but he shook her off. The mask of arrogance he wore so tightly was gone now. And beneath it, I saw what I had always suspected. Weakness. For years, I had been told I was the disappointment, the failure, the help in the kitchen. But as I looked at him, sweating, trembling, begging, I realized the truth. I was never the weak one. I stood slowly, sliding my chair back. Their eyes followed me, but I didn't rush. I wanted them to feel every second of their power slipping away. I looked around the table one last time. The father who had never believed in me, the brother who had used me, the woman who had mocked me, and said the only two words they deserved. Dinner's over. I walked away from the dining table, my heels echoing against the marble floor like a slow drumbeat. Behind me, no one followed. They were frozen, as if the air itself had turned to stone. But then, my father's voice thundered through the silence. Don't you dare walk away from this family, he roared. His fists slammed against the table, rattling the glasses. You think money makes you better than us? You'll regret this arrogance. I stopped at the edge of the room, my back still turned to them. For a moment, the old me stirred. The daughter, who once would have stopped, apologized, begged for a crumb of approval. But she was gone now. I turned slowly, my eyes locking with his. You had years to make me feel like family, I said softly, but you chose pride instead. Don't talk to me about regret. You don't know the meaning of it yet. My brother finally stood, his face pale, his jaw clenched, so tight it looked painful. Please, he said, almost choking. Don't do this. You don't understand what that contract means. I tilted my head. It means power, I replied. And you were happy to let me hold it, as long as I stayed small. As long as I stayed silent. His wife scoffed bitterly, but her voice cracked. You think you're winning by destroying your own blood? I let out a dry laugh. Blood isn't the same as loyalty. You all proved that years ago. The room went quiet again. Their silence wasn't just shock anymore, it was fear. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of theirs. I slipped my coat over my shoulders and walked toward the door. Every step felt lighter, stronger. They had thrown every insult, every dismissal, every cruel word at me, and yet here I was, holding the one thing they could never take: control. As I reached the doorway, I looked back once more. My father's fists were still clenched, my brother's shoulders slumped, his wife's eyes darting in panic. A family built on pride, now crumbling in silence. I gave them one last gift. A smile. Then I stepped into the night, leaving the mansion behind. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Missed calls. Dozens. My brother. My father. Even numbers I didn't recognize. Probably their lawyers, their partners, their desperate middlemen. I let it ring. I brewed my coffee slowly, savoring the sound of the machine, the rising steam, the calm. After years of running after their approval, I finally enjoyed watching them run after me. By noon, the emails started. Subject lines screamed at me in bold red letters. Urgent. Reconsider. Final warning. Call immediately. I clicked none of them. Instead, I opened the news. The headlines spread across the screen like fire. Multi-million-dollar deal collapses. Family name, holdings in crisis. I leaned back in my chair, letting the words sink in.
It was real now.
Their empire, the one they lorded over me my entire life, had started to fracture in public. The same people who once sneered at me as if I were dirt would now have to answer questions about me. About the sister, the daughter, they dismissed. I pictured my brother pacing, his wife shrieking, my father screaming into phones that no longer bent to his will. It was a beautiful kind of silence, the silence of power shifting. By evening, the messages changed tone. No longer commands.
Please.
Please call us back. We can fix this. You don't understand what's at stake. Come home. Let's talk. Home. That word used to sting. Now it just sounded like a lie. I finally picked up the phone, but not to call them. I dialed my attorney. Move forward, I said calmly. Every document we discussed, file it. Make sure it's airtight. He hesitated. You know this will shut them out completely. There's no coming back from it. I sipped my coffee, cold now but steady in my hand. Exactly. For the first time, I wasn't reacting to their cruelty. I was choosing. And I chose myself. The knock came just after midnight.
Slow.
Heavy. Familiar. I didn't move at first. I just sat on my couch, staring at the door, listening to the sound echo through the quiet of my apartment. Then a voice. My father's. Open up. We need to talk. I rose, calm, almost detached, and opened the door. There they were, my father, my brother, his wife, lined up like a broken army. My father's suit was wrinkled, his tie pulled loose. My brother looked hollow, his shoulders slumped, his arrogance gone. His wife, the one who once sneered at me like I was beneath her, now looked like she hadn't slept in days. What do you want? I asked flatly. My father spoke first, his tone lower than I'd ever heard it. We can fix this. You don't have to destroy everything. You're still family. That word again. Family. The one they only pulled out when they needed me. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Family doesn't throw their daughter to the kitchen. Family doesn't spit on her, then beg when the money runs dry. My brother stepped forward, desperation trembling in his voice.
Please.
I made a mistake.
We all did.
But if you cancel the filings, the contracts can still be saved. Well, we'll make things right. For years, I would have crumbled at those words. I would have believed them, reached for them like a starving child reaching for scraps.
But now?
I saw their panic for what it really was, not love, not remorse. Survival. My father's voice cracked, the man who once barked orders like a king now reduced to pleading. Don't do this. You'll regret it. We'll regret it. Think of the family name. I almost laughed. The family name, the crown they guarded while treating me like dirt beneath their feet. Funny, I said quietly. You only remember my name when you needed to sign a contract. Their silence was heavy. I let the pause linger, then slowly, deliberately, I closed the door. The last thing I saw before the latch clicked was their faces, shocked, pale, hollow. The empire they built on pride and cruelty was slipping away, and they knew it. I didn't lock the door for safety. I locked it for peace. For the first time, I wasn't the one left outside. The news broke faster than I expected. One headline, then two, then a cascade. Major family firm collapses after $30 million contract canceled. Executives under fire. Allegations of fraud surface. By morning, their empire wasn't just crumbling, it was in freefall. I didn't need to go searching for updates. They came to me. Notifications flooded my phone. Friends sent me links. Old colleagues called to confirm what they'd read. The press loved the story. A family once worshipped for their wealth, now drowning in scandal. I watched from my living room window as reporters gathered outside their estate, cameras flashing, voices shouting questions no one inside could answer. And then came the footage, my brother storming out the front gate, shoving microphones away, his wife hiding behind dark sunglasses, my father refusing to speak at all. For once, Their arrogance couldn't shield them. For once, they couldn't silence the world. The board of directors resigned. Investors pulled out. Banks froze accounts. By the end of the week, they weren't just struggling, they were finished. At night, I sat with a glass of wine, watching the coverage play like a movie. Only this time, I wasn't the background character. I remembered every insult, every dismissal, every moment they made me feel like I was less. The helpmates in the kitchen. You've always been a disappointment. Don't think money makes you family. Their voices used to echo in my chest, sharp and unshakable.
Now?
They were nothing more than subtitles scrolling across a documentary of their own destruction. One evening, I passed by a cafe downtown and heard strangers talking at a corner table. Can you believe it? That family's done. Years of corruption. Serves them right. Karma's real. They laughed, shaking their heads. They didn't know I was the missing piece of the story, the one who finally pulled the string and let the whole thing unravel. And I didn't correct them. I just walked on, letting their laughter trail behind me like a song I'd waited my whole life to hear. Revenge didn't come in fire or fury. It came in silence, in letting the truth walk out into the light while I stayed in the shadows. And as the world watched them collapse, I realized something deeper. This wasn't just payback. It was freedom. Weeks passed, and the storm around my family only grew darker. Fraud investigations, lawsuits, whispered rumors about bankruptcy. Their mansion, once glowing with lights and endless parties, now stood dim, curtains drawn, as if the house itself had gone into hiding. I drove by once, not to gloat, just to see. The driveway that used to gleam with luxury cars was empty. The fountain in front was turned off, leaves floating in stagnant water. And there, through a gap in the curtains, I caught a glimpse of my father sitting alone, shoulders hunched, staring at nothing. For a moment, I almost felt something, pity, maybe. But then I remembered the years of humiliation, the way they stripped me of dignity, the way they laughed at my pain. And pity turned to silence. I didn't knock. I didn't announce myself. I simply drove on, leaving them in the ruins they built for themselves. Meanwhile, my world was opening wider than ever. The canceled contract wasn't a loss, it was a shift. Other companies had seen what I'd done, and they reached out, eager to partner with someone who chose integrity over family corruption. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was leading. My name, my work, stood on its own. One night, as I walked into my new office, the city lights glowing against the glass, I thought about the girl who once ate in the kitchen, silent, invisible, treated as less. That girl was gone. I had rewritten the story, not with screaming, not with fists, but with patience, timing, and one phone call that echoed louder than every insult they'd ever thrown. Justice didn't come dressed in rage. It came dressed in calm, in clarity, in the quiet strength of knowing when to let go. My brother's empire was gone. My father's legacy shattered. My sister-in-law's sneer forgotten. And me? I was finally free. So I smiled, not the forced smile they used to dismiss, but a real one. A smile that belonged only to me. Because this wasn't their ending. It was my beginning.